Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Newsroom. I'm your host, Khalid. But today is Monday, the 13th of June, 2022. These are the stories that we'll be discussing during the course of the show. We'll begin, ladies and gentlemen, with the Foreign Minister Bilawal Bhutto Zardari, who has announced that he has had a discussion with the OIC Secretary General as far as the human rights abuses in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir and the persecution of Muslims in India is concerned. Also, we know how the authorities in Uttar Pradesh have demolished the homes of several people who are accused of involvement in riots. And these riots have begun because of the statements that have emanated from two spokespersons of the leading Bharatiya Janata Party, who have since then been suspended from their duties, but nevertheless they were spokespersons of the BJP, and this emanates a certain mindset of the BJP that has been seen openly since the last few years. Will the Muslim countries, as they have come together as one in talking about the negative aspects of these two statements, will they continue pressurizing India as far as their anti-Muslim attitude is concerned? This is going to be our first segment. Our second story, ladies and gentlemen, concerns China and the West, where on the one hand the tensions are deepening, on the other hand the strong friendship, collaboration and cooperation between Pakistan and the People's Republic of China continues to strengthen day by day. The latest example of that is the meeting between the military leadership of both China and Pakistan that was held very recently, in which a lot of issues were discussed. Also, our foreign minister was in China recently. What was discussed during that will also be talked about during this segment. China and Pakistan, two brotherly, friendly countries whose friendship is talked about as an iron fist. Our third story, ladies and gentlemen, concerns the International Albinism Awareness Day that is being observed today on Monday. The theme for this day this year is United in Making Our Voice Heard. And our final story, ladies and gentlemen, concerns the story of a young woman from Karachi who, to combat inflation and unemployment, took the job of a father, that is driving a rickshaw, once his father passed away. She is the youngest of the sisters and is now taking care not only of herself but also her sisters and her mother. This is our last story. Let's begin with our first segment, and that concerns the attitude of India as far as its Muslims is concerned. We've heard the statements that were emanated by two important spokespersons of the BJP against our last prophet Hazrat Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the reaction that came from worldwide. Now there is a continued pressure that is slowly and steadily being put on India, but will this pressure sustain? More in the following report.
The disparaging remarks on Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, by two high-ranking officials from India's ruling party not only triggered a diplomatic backlash against New Delhi, but also raised concern about persecution of minorities and threat to religious freedom in India. Thousands of Muslims in South Asia, nations of India, Bangladesh and Pakistan rally over derogatory remarks about the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, by two officials from India's ruling party. In order to highlight rising Islamophobia in India, Foreign Minister Bilawal Bhutto Zardari announced that he has recently had a discussion with the Secretary General of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, Hussain Brahim Taha, regarding the persecution of Muslims in India. Elaborating key points of discussion, Foreign Minister stated that unacceptable and condemnable remarks by Indian BJP officials towards the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, and shared concern on rising Islamophobia and persecution of Muslims in India and the need to address that through collective efforts were focal points of meeting. In order to send a clear message to the entire world, Premier Shehbaz Sharif has requested the National Assembly Speaker Raja Parvez Ashraf to hold a debate and subsequently adopt a resolution to condemn BJP leaders' blasphemous remarks against Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, in the upcoming session of the Assembly. India under Modi is transforming as a petty, vindictive nation that seeks pleasure in humiliating the minorities and less privileged.
Dr. Farah Naz, International Affairs Expert, joins us online. Dr. Farah, thank you very much to have joined us. Dr. Farah, this is an issue that we've discussed in the past as well. Nevertheless, this has gained a lot of momentum now that other Muslim countries have joined the fray along with Pakistan in condemning the heinous attitude of the Indian government and the BJP headworks against the Muslim minority. Will that gain further momentum, or do you feel slowly and steadily that there will be an end to this pressure tactics and India will continue unabated?
Thank you, Umar, for having me. First of all, I seriously condemn whatever happened in India. I think this is not acceptable. Whatever they were doing to all the minorities, that was at first place not acceptable. But unfortunately, the international community, they were not raising against, the whatever the Indian government under Modi was doing to all the minorities who is living there, not only minorities but the Hindus who are doing there. Now coming over to whatever happened now, if you go back, I think we have been discussing in some of your shows, we have been discussing the hate speech, the hatred, and the seeds of this, atrocities, whatever the BJP and the RSS they were having in India. This thing was supposed to happen because when you are as a government you are projecting and promoting hatred towards particular group of people, let's say Muslims. So unfortunately then people get so confident that they are ready to take any measures in their hand, and I think exactly the same way it happened in India these days. So the reaction of the international community to such acceptable comments. I think this is this should have happened long ago, because by the time the statements were made, the reaction came quite late, and I was a bit disappointed at what is happening. Muslims are the second largest population in the world, and I think we all are very touchy about our religious sentiments and the ideological beliefs that we hold on to. In India, unfortunately, there are around 200 million Muslims living there. So in that way, what are we doing for the Muslims there whose life is all the time, going through a lot of grill and a lot of, turmoil? Nobody came to the front to stand for all those people. Probably that's the reason that now the Indian government and their leadership, they are becoming more hostile towards all Muslims there. And it's very unfortunate on the part of all of us.
Well, just look at the hostilities, Dr. Farah Naz, as far as the Indian government is concerned. They are now demolishing the houses of those who were involved in the reactions that emanated from the Muslim community as a result of these heinous, blasphemous statements that came from the BJP leadership. Now the Muslims don't even have the right to protest against this, because if they do protest, then their houses are demolished. They are put in jails. Can a country like that be called a democratic country or a country that follows human rights?
No, not at all. I've been constantly saying that India is no more following a democratic government. Whatever we have in India is Hindutva, and Hindutva decide whose right to be given and whose right not to be given. Here, when you are speaking about those people who want to protest, particularly Muslims and probably other groups, including Hindus, will be upset with whatever the statements have been made there by the leader. So they have the right to protest? They have no right even to get some education. Where we were discussing lots of problems associated to girls seeking education, wearing the way they want to dress up. So if they have no right to get that sort of liberty, how can India under Modi, under RSS, under BJP, and under Hindutva would allow these people to come forward and to protest against its leadership? That's not going to happen. So if they even try to, they will be snubbed to another level. And unfortunately, we, like all of us Muslim states, if you look at more than 50 countries, there are Muslims living, where Muslims are a majority. But how many of them have come forward? Just a few numbers. It's very unfortunate. That's why they are getting very stronger. But here the problem is not only limited to the Muslim countries alone and the countries where Muslims are a majority. It is the champions of the human rights. Though I appreciate the way the United Nations Secretary General came forward and gave statement that they will they want to respect and and then to maintain tolerance with all the religious groups. But that is not sufficient enough. They need to do something concrete. Like these kind of statements are good enough for just as a beginning, but in the long run, they need to come forward and do something. If this would have happened in another part of the world, probably there would be a lot of hue and cry coming up from the Western
Had this
world.
happened against any other religious community apart from Muslims,
Yeah.
a lot would have been said by the West by now.
Yes, agree. I completely agree with you on that. Because if we look at all these champions of human rights, they have stronger dominance by all those other groups that we are calling now. Because I think it's us versus them now, where Muslims are no more considered seriously, and they are not even considered seriously respectable and somebody who can believe in whatever way they want to and just lead their life the way they want to. So in all of this, unfortunately, we cannot say that India is having a democracy where everyone's right is going to be secured and protected. No, not at all. Under Hindutva, Muslims have no place there. So are they going to push all Muslims to, to leave India? I think they're preparing to visit because they are under the 370 article revocation and all of that. That was the first step towards, pushing Muslims to the corners and where they have no right to
Now you
seek
talk
any
about
sort of.
you talk about pushing Muslims to the corner. Let's talk about Uttar Pradesh, West Bengal, and other areas where the protests have started as far as the Muslim communities in those areas in India are concerned. Do you feel that will have any kind of a reaction, or do you think that reactionary measures such as demolishing the houses of those who are involved in protests will continue till such time that the Muslims who are trying to protest will stop protesting? Or do you feel this is a movement that has started and is not going to stop?
Umar, you have to see on whose backing India is becoming so violent with each passing phase and each passing day. I think it's all the Western support that it is having, that India can do whatever they want to and nobody is going to question them. Just a mere statement coming out and not, asking India for whatever has happened is a serious violation of the feelings of the Muslim community and the minorities who are living there, and even not allowing them to protest, not allowing them to say that they have really been affected with the statements made. So all those people who are coming out in different parts of India, they are at first place not allowed to, and secondly, if they even try to, because of their ideological beliefs and their religious understanding, even if they try to come out, their life is getting threatened, their property is getting threatened. So who is going to protect them? Unless and until the international community come forward and put certain serious restrictions on India, that the rights of all minorities needs to be preserved. And here, again and again, I keep saying it, it's not only Muslims and the minorities whose life is threatened in India, the Hindus themselves as well. So they need to put, a ban on the Hindutva ideology, that whatever they're doing is
Do you
really
foresee
affecting.
a ban on the Hindutva ideology, as you just say? I mean, because this is something that I really don't foresee in the near future.
I agree with you on that, because Hindutva ideology is something that they are selling everywhere. And I think now the world is also realizing the fact that Hindutva ideology is not only affecting the life of the people, I will not say Muslims or Sikhs or Dalits, people in India, but also people in other parts of the world as well. So they are becoming so concerned and touchy about that Hindutva ideology has no place in their country. So why are they not coming forward and to restrict and to tell India that these are the do's and don'ts? You cannot violate all the rights, because they are the champions of the human rights, and they
All right,
always
now,
come forward.
Dr. Farah Naz, I'd like to understand a little bit about the expulsion of Naveen Kumar Jindal, who's a BJP leader, who said a blasphemous statement against, who tweeted, in fact, a statement against our last Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and also is the spokeswoman of BJP, Nupur Sharma, who was suspended. Do you feel this suspension and expulsion would not have happened had there not been a reaction from the Middle Eastern countries?
Well, I think these were like, even the suspension and sacking their leader is not sufficient enough for whatever the damage they have caused already. But yes, all these countries, the Middle Eastern countries and the GCC, they coming forward and boycotting all the Indian goods. The India had to show that, okay, I am serious about it, and it's not the BJP government responsible, it's just an individual act. I will not call it an individual act. It's a collective action that has been taken, not now, but from quite some time. And whenever you are, sowing something, one day it will reap fruit and it will come forward. So this is what has happened already. So if you look at work, well, can India afford, to take such kind of measures with the Middle Eastern countries? I think they are really in a very tight situation where the India is having very strong and great trade relationship and partnership with the GCC countries and with the Middle Eastern countries.
And was that the reason why one leader was expelled and the other was suspended?
Could be one of the reasons, because other than that, nothing else has come forward by the human rights authorities. So securing the trade partnership, securing, like, they are having more than 8.5 million people working there in the GCC countries. So of course, the life of all those people who are there in those countries is really getting affected, and probably they will be becoming a victim of, harassment and bullying there, as we have seen in different parts of the world where Muslims have faced such kind of harassment and bullying in other parts of the world. So probably to securitize that, they just tried to suspend and to sack their leaders, but that's not sufficient enough anymore. They have to do much more, and India is not ready to do that. The international community has to push India to
all right, now
itself.
let's talk about the pushing by the international community. Let's talk about the OIC. Now, the OIC had taken out a very strong statement, and India, if you remember well, had dismissed OIC statement as well as Pakistan's statement. Now, Bilawal Bhutto Zardari Sahab has had a telephonic conversation with the OIC Secretary General, Excellency Hussain Brahim Taha, on, of course, these remarks. Do you feel that Pakistan, along with the OIC, can take certain measures in order to put pressure on India so that it does not repeat tactics such as what happened a few days ago?
Through the OIC platform, yes, they can put pressure on India, but for that they have to get united. In the last OIC meeting here in Islamabad, I think Islamophobia was one of the major point that was coming out as a point of consensus among all Muslim countries. So if these Muslim countries unite and stand against, it's not only India, but all those people and countries who are violating Muslim rights and torturing them and threatening them as someone else, they need to come forward. So they need to prepare some sort of, stronger agenda that how, if it happens, how they're going to react to it. So far, if you look at the numbers of states, 13 or more, around 15, maybe they have come forward to protest for whatever happened in India. What about the rest of the countries? What about Indonesia? What about all of those? Did they do something?
Well, Indonesia has had a very strong reaction, so has Malaysia.
Yeah.
But do you feel the reactions need to be more aggressive and more long-term in your point of view?
Yes, it has to be more aggressive, and there should be certain demands coming forward, and the demand should be in the form of some changes into its legal arrangement, whatever they have done, and some redo and like undoing certain things that they have done in the past that is really affecting the life of the Muslims in
You
India.
talk of undoing of things that India has done in the past. Dr. Farah, do you feel that this is a possibility in your point of view? And if so, which is the mechanism through which this undoing can start?
Oh, well, look, they have to, through the OIC platform, all the Muslim countries first need to come to a particular agenda and what they want and how they want to do it. Of course, Article 370 revocation is one of the major milestones that they have to undo, because that is leading towards whatever we are witnessing today. And that is providing them legal platforms. So they have to decide something on the OIC platform first, and then take it to the United Nations and all those organizations who are leading with all the human rights issues. So from there, if all these groups and organizations group together, they can do something to undo whatever I am referring to.
All right, Dr. Farah, do you feel economic pressure is the only pressure that India will understand?
Well, even today I was reading about that. They say that the Middle East and GCC, they are not only, it's not only India benefiting from them, but they believe in that it's the other party also benefiting from them. So these countries and these regions, they have to show that if we are not buying things from you, we can buy it from some other state. So that probably will give a huge blow to India. And when it comes to Qatar, 40% of the LNG is, the requirement of the Indian as a state. So they have to see from where they're going to get it done. So it's more like calculation of the resources and calculation of the benefits and the cost, so that probably India will come to terms that, okay, they probably have to behave now and they're not going to violate other people's rights, and from other people's, all minorities, I mean.
All right, Dr. Farah, when you look at Pakistan and the way it has been telling the world about Indian atrocities, whether it be in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir and within India, against Muslims, against the Christians, against the Dalits, against the Sikhs. We have shown documentation, we have talked on all the important fora, whether it be the United Nations or the OIC. Do you feel Pakistan has done enough? Do you feel Pakistan needs to do more?
Pakistan needs to do more, because it was Pakistan who highlighted this issue on the OIC platform, and it was Pakistan and the former Prime Minister Imran Khan who was raising it very upfront, and I'm glad that the current government is also taking the issue seriously. So they have to take a lead, and Pakistan is, I think, one of the countries who is having good terms with most of these Muslim countries, so they can lead towards, bringing certain changes, and Pakistan has a due share in that.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Farah Naz, to have joined us. That was Dr. Farah Naz, International Relations Expert, talking to us about the atrocities that India is committing as far as the Indian Muslims are concerned, whether it be in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir or whether it be within India. Every person has a right to protest in a certain manner if that protest is judicious, and it was in this case, because there were blasphemous remarks against our Holy Prophet ﷺ that came out from two important BJP leaders. Despite the fact that India has taken necessary action against those two leaders, there is a certain mindset within the BJP that needs to have a relook, and that the different countries, important countries across the world, need to tell India to unroll or to change in order for India to be called some kind of a democratic country? Because under the current conditions, I'm sorry, I don't feel it, they can be called that. Our second segment, ladies and gentlemen, concerns the tensions between the China and the West and the strengthening of the relationship between Pakistan and China on the military front, on the different fronts. For more in the following report.
China and Pakistan have enjoyed a close and mutually beneficial relationship since establishment of diplomatic ties in 1951. Both countries remain steadfast diplomatic, strategic and economic allies despite tectonic shifts in geopolitical order. Strategic engagement is a crucial component of Pakistan-China partnership as emergence of Quad and other hostile military alliances has rendered Pakistan a strategic window for stable Asia-Pacific security architecture. The two militaries have maintained close high-level strategic communication and carried out the pragmatic cooperation in related fields, testifying their brotherhood and friendship. Exhibiting a deepening strategic bond, military leadership of China and Pakistan has further bolstered their cooperation, building on their strategic partnership in the challenging geopolitical ambience. A high-powered Pakistani delegation comprising senior military officials from all three services, Army, Navy and Air Force, visited China from 9th to 12th of June as part of the meeting of Pakistan-China Joint Military Cooperation Committee. Chief of Army Staff General Qamar Javed Bajwa joined the tri-service military delegation and attended the Apex Committee's meeting along with the top Chinese generals. A statement issued by military's media wing, the ISPR, stated that the tri-service delegation held wide-ranging discussions with senior officials of Chinese military and other government departments. Pakistan-China axis is quite unique and probably without precedent in the recent diplomatic history of the world.
Now, as far as the relationship between the Islamic Republic of Pakistan and the People's Republic of China is concerned, this is a time-tested friendship, a friendship that has seen the best and the worst of times, and in both the times, both countries have held each other together, have helped each other, and have taken each other from the different issues that were pertaining and that concerned those different countries. They have always supported each other in the good and the bad times. Now, recently, as we have seen that there has been a strengthening of bonds between the two countries, there has always been a strengthening of different facets of our relationship, and to talk about that and more, we've been joined by Najam Saqib Saab, who's a former ambassador. Najam Saqib Saab, thank you very much to have joined us. Najam Saqib Saab, Pakistan and China, friendship, collaboration, cooperation, nothing that we don't know about. It is strengthening with every passing day, despite the different elements that try to fracture that relationship. Now, the recent military-to-military collaboration and the meeting between both sides, do you feel it's going to further strengthen the bond between Pakistan and China? And secondly, how important is this meeting in the current geopolitical scenario?
Thank you very much, Umar, for having me on your show. You are absolutely right. You know, whenever we talk, especially in Pakistan, about Sino-Pakistan relations, Pakistan's relations with China, there are certain cliches, there are certain rhetorics, but the fact remains that one has to go through all those areas once again when we are talking about the strong, relationships in almost every field as far as Pakistan's relations with China are concerned. So since you have already introduced the topic, I would not like to go back to 1972 when Pakistan helped President Nixon to go to China, and from, even since 1950, when we started our diplomatic relations till today, till the inauguration of CPAC and all that. Let's come to the point straight away. The situation is that, over Taiwan, the US and China have recently started having serious issues. And the statements emanating from Beijing against the US, I haven't seen those kind of statements in the context of China, in the context of the United States. Now, this, you can keep it as a one part of the backdrop of this particular high-level meeting, military meeting of tri-services headed by General Bajwa, 3 days in Beijing, and talking about the entire gamut of not only military, but the security aspects of the area. Naturally, Afghanistan would have been discussed, India would have been discussed, and the Central Asian security elements Of course, Ukraine crisis and the overall impact of this war on China, on Pakistan, and in the region. But I think in the heart of this visit lied the reiteration of staying together in a way that, let's say tomorrow something happens to China or there is a threat to China, Pakistan will be steadfast and would be eager to extend any kind of help and assistance diplomatically, politically, etc., and vice versa. Now, the timing is very crucial, as you have mentioned, because as I said, the Taiwan situation is now brewing as such, and US has not been taking a break ever since President of the United States in the the meeting at NATO about a few months ago, when they reiterated that China must be contained. China must be contained was always there, but it was a reiteration.
But Ambassador Saab, the Indo-Pacific strategy of the US, isn't it based more or less on this fact?
Yes, of course. I mean, South China Sea, everyone knows, and basically it boils down to the trade. The thing is that, all of us, we know why US would like to contain China, why India is being, tipped as the policeman on behalf of the West to contain China, why NATO would like to contain China, why European Union is interested in that, because China has been emerging, as the most probably the second most and very soon to become #1 economic power in the world. Now the chessboard is there, the pieces have been placed. Now the thing is that who blinks first? And I think the strong statements in the last couple of weeks coming from China are not so comforting, because there have been veiled threats from both sides. As far as Pakistan is concerned, for us, our own survival, our own security, our own economic issues are of course in the forefront, and CPEC, the main thing which has been under cloud somehow. The enemies would like to create some kind of a misinformation campaign in which there have been some doubts. So that is why the CDA of Chinese embassy a couple of days ago, he categorically
the 7th
said
CPEC media forum, in which he talked about the issues pertaining to this China-Pakistan economic corridor. And there are so many elements that want to thwart this corridor, because it's a very important economic collaboration between both the brotherly countries, and a lot of countries don't want this friendship to grow in the economic front. Do you feel their attempts will continue, or that they will be able to be thwarted?
They have already been thwarted, and as you have said, this media forum talk of the Chinese head of mission, the charge d'affaires. The thing is that in the past 2 years or so, there have been some misunderstandings created by our enemies, both within and without. That CPEC is gone, CPEC is, Pakistan is not fulfilling its obligation, China is not interested, China is finding some other way, perhaps India, to, bring New Delhi into it. They are all wrong statements, #1. #2, it's a propaganda. #3, it's a disinformation campaign, which General Bajwa, and before that our Prime Minister, Mr. Shehbaz Sharif, and now, the CDA of the Chinese embassy have clearly stated that there is nothing wrong with that. The program is on, it will go on, and no matter how much propaganda you do, we are going to go ahead with CPEC.
All right. Now, coming from the CPEC back to the military collaboration between Pakistan and China, our Chief of the Army Staff has said while he was meeting his Chinese counterpart that Pakistan is willing to further strengthen coordination with the Chinese army to safeguard the common interest of both countries. How important is that statement in this current context as well?
Basically this high military cooperation, they have 2 subcommittees also. The focus is on 2 things. One is the training and technology, which we have been benefiting from Chinese experience, and then counter-terrorism and by the way, it is not only related to the army. We are talking about all the three tiers of the army, the Air Force and Navy. So
True.
Pakistan's interests, are very clear. We would like to acquire technology. We would like to, share the training programs. I remember when I was in NDU, there were some Chinese, army officials who come every year to attend our courses, and similarly, there is a principle of reciprocity. So from training to counter-terrorism to technology transfer, these are the three major areas which Pakistan and the military of China are interested. And the main thing is, when you say that they have reiterated to continue with the strategic partnership. Now, this word is very comprehensive and all-inclusive. It includes not only the military, cooperation between the two, which has been going on unhindered for years. It includes the economic and trade cooperation. It includes, it includes Chinese cooperation to us and their support to, from FATF to IAEA to UN to you name it. And China will be there. And that is what this strategic cooperation is all about. That it is all encompassing. It encompasses all the important areas of bilateral trajectory, plus all those areas of, let's say, interest to China, for instance, China and US problems, or China's stand on Taiwan and Tibet and all those, and Pakistan's stand on Kashmir. So there is a, complete, you can say understanding, not only through the MOUs, hundreds of MOUs, agreements and treaties, but whenever both sides meet, these things are reiterated. And for the, to the chagrin of our enemies, when we reiterate that Pakistan and China, our strategic cooperation is going on forcefully and amicably and very nicely.
When you talk of strategic cooperation, there is a very strong military cooperation between China and Pakistan as well, and China has been strengthening Pakistan's military as well. Let's talk about the J-10 fighter jets and so many others, where Pakistan and China have been working together to not only strengthen Pakistan's military, but also to strengthen that military collaboration. I'd also like to highlight here that our current army chief is the only military leader who has visited China on the invitation of the Chinese president. Does that also show the resolve and from the Chinese side to cement ties between the two countries? And you talked about Taiwan, but there's also the Russia-Ukraine conflict that is affecting the region as well.
That's right. And when General Bajwa met General Zhang Yuhua, the vice chairman of the Central Military Commission of China, I have read very carefully the press release issued by ISPR. They said that military cooperation and other departments, other areas. So I can imagine that, as you have very rightly said, the crisis in Ukraine, of course, and then Afghanistan situation, the Taliban government in Kabul, and the Pak-India relations, etc. So when we sit on the table, Umar, what happens is that we have a set agenda to talk about, and there are things which can be told to the media, there are things which cannot be told to the media.
And that is quite understood.
I can safely say that I can tell you that not only the military cooperation, but the economic aspect, the trade aspect, and the regional security situation. And that includes intelligence, security problems, border issues, everything. So as a foreign service officer for 35 years, I know that when it comes to China, there is a broad agenda. Every time two leaders, either from military or from civil, they meet. And I am personally very happy with this 3-day, visit of General Bajwa and all the other senior officers of Air Force and Navy, and the commitment to going ahead with CPAC. It is also included in it, and the future challenges. The future challenges, how Pakistan and China are going to face future challenges, because there is a set of problems which we are facing right now.
Of course.
But anything happening in future, we are ready to face it together.
this strategic partnership that Pakistan and China has a lot of elements have tried to fracture this strategic relationship. But of course, both Pakistan and China understand those elements and are trying to work to eliminate such elements as much as possible. Now, you were talking of military cooperation. I'd also like to understand your point of view on the Pak-China Joint Military Cooperation Committee, the PCAJMCC, which is one of the highest bodies in military cooperation. Do you feel also that bodies such as these can serve both Pakistan and China and other countries that understand Pakistan and China friendship in order to further strengthen the strategic balance in this region?
I can assure you, Umar, that this particular committee, this high-level committee that you have mentioned, we have, two subcommittees of this, as I said, dealing with training, technology, and, secondly, the procurement of equipment. Now, you can't go beyond that. This is the highest possible military level committee which you can imagine in the international arena. So I'm very hopeful that if they meet regularly, and meeting is very important. I must tell your viewers that naturally, in this age of technology, you can use emails, you can use other media to communicate between, the two countries. But meeting in person has a special significance, because there are certain areas, certain matters, when both the leaders, either military or civil, they tell their delegations to, excuse themselves. So there is a one-on-one talk between the two leaders also, which might have happened in this case also, but you are absolutely right. Such is the highest possible level relationship between the two countries. But here I would like to make one point very clear. When it comes to Pakistan-China relations, either civil or military, somehow the impression in Pakistan is that China would always be steadfast, China would always be a friend no matter what we do in Islamabad or in Lahore or Karachi. Let me, tell you and your viewers that there is a thing called national interest. China is with us because its national interests are, somehow overlap with ours as far as the regional situation is concerned, as far as the economy is concerned, as far as other areas of cooperation are concerned. And I can assure you that Pakistan is doing its bit as China is doing its bit. We do not have to take Chinese or the relationship between the two countries for granted. That is why all the more reasons, all those misunderstandings and this disinformation campaign that you and we have talked about CPAC, for this particular reason, one-on-one meeting, the delegation level talks, they are very important.
All right. Ambassador Saqib, finally, let's talk a little bit about foreign affairs. Our Foreign Minister Bilawal Bhutto Zardari Sahab also visited China some time back. He met with Foreign Minister Wang Yi and they reached a consensus on enhancing counter-terrorism cooperation. They talked about formulating an enhanced plan to safeguard the security of Chinese personnel and projects in Pakistan. How important is that as well, counter-terrorism and the protection of the Chinese personnel, because we've seen incidents in the past as well, especially in Karachi.
Talking about counter-terrorism, Umar, it is both relevant in the civil domain as well as the military domain. As it was one of the foremost agenda items in General Bajwa's talks, naturally it is number one or number two, agenda item when the foreign ministers of two countries meet or when the foreign minister of Pakistan talks about it. Somehow or the other, our geography has created such a situation that because of Afghanistan and India, the sponsoring of terrorism from India or TTP in Afghanistan or border issues, we are, kind of a sandwich situation between India on our eastern border and Afghanistan on our western border. Of course, it is the most important topic. And by the way, as far as US-Pakistan relations are concerned, the only item right now, as we speak, that Antony Blinken or the president
is counter-terrorism. Is
the counter-terrorism. So it happened. there are three areas basically: counter-terrorism, border issues, and intelligence sharing. But out of these three, counter-terrorism is number one, and that is the immediate problem. And as you have seen that, we are going to discuss it. I read it in the newspaper today that, Pakistan People's Party has formed a committee to bring this TTP matter in the parliament and discuss and have a threadbare, discussion on it. That is the most important topic. That is the most important, danger, or you can say, the problem that Pakistan is facing. By just, we happen to be in that geographical zone where this TTP and other Daesh and Al-Qaeda and all that are. So, Foreign Minister Bilawal is taking up this matter with Chinese. Naturally, we need that cooperation, but we need this cooperation with other countries also.
True.
China is already on board. China is already on board.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Najam Saqib Saab, to have talked to us about Pakistan-China collaboration in different fields, especially the military arena, in the wake of the visit of our Chief of the Army Staff on the invitation of the Chinese President. Let's come to our last two stories very quickly. The first concerns the International Albinism Awareness Day that is being observed today. Now, the theme of the day this year is United in Making Our Voice Heard. Now, what is albinism? Albinism, ladies and gentlemen, is a rare and genetically inherited health condition which is present at birth. What happens? It results in a lack of pigmentation. So you see the skin becoming more white in certain areas of the body. It happens in the hair, in the skin, and the eyes. This is due to the lack of a pigment called melanin. And this causes vulnerability to the sun and to the bright light as well. The children cannot go out and sustain themselves under the sun or under heat. And also it is non-contagious. A lot of people feel that by touching or by hugging you can get the disease. In fact, you cannot. A majority of persons with albinism unfortunately pass away from skin cancer between the ages of 30 to 40 years. Therefore, it's even more important to not only understand this disease but also protect those children who get that disease. It is through protecting these children that they can have a longer and a more fruitful life. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about breaking taboos. Let's talk about a girl from Karachi who has done in fact exactly this by taking the profession of a father, that is driving the rickshaw, and sustaining the livelihood of not only herself but also her family, her mother and her sisters. Her father used to drive the rickshaw, but once he became ill and then passed away, there was no means of sustaining the family. Therefore, this young girl, Alisha Abdul Jamil, who is a resident of the city's Drig Road locality and the youngest among her sisters, took the job upon herself to feed herself and her family, and that is what she is doing. She is running the rickshaw, and her mother is extremely proud of her, and we feel really that this is an example for so many others to follow. We feel that where there is a will, there is always a way. We understand that a lot of people go through hardships, but one should always look at the solutions, not at the problems. Just like Alisha Abdul Jamil has done, she has taken up the pressure and she has taken up the responsibility, and she is moving forward to sustain the livelihood of herself and her family. We wish her all the very best and all the more power. With that, we come to an end of today's newsroom. We'll see you inshallah tomorrow with new segment stories that pertain to us, you and Pakistan. Till then, stay safe, follow the SOPs, and have a wonderful evening. Allah Hafiz.